Okay, so today I thought we would just do a fun, lighthearted, chill video. I asked for, in a community tab, I asked for people's bad takes. Not hot takes, bad takes. I read through a couple of them shortly after the post went live, and some of them are really good. I haven't read through them over the last couple of days because I wanted to hang out with you and go through them together. But from what I saw when they first started coming in, y'all were delivering, so I'm excited. But before we get into the bad takes, a shout out to today's sponsor, Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that allows you to try a new designer fragrance every month for just $17. With each fragrance you choose, you'll get a 30-day supply to try new fragrances before committing to a full-size bottle. And there are over 600 designer brands to choose from designer labels like Prada, Gucci, Versace, and a lot more. They have perfumes and colognes with a lot of unisex options. My husband and I both picked out some fragrances. My favorite for myself is Checkmate. The top scents are Divana, Champagne, and Rogue Grosé. It has a really earthy scent that I dig. And Corey got this Burberry scent for men. Top notes are bergamot, mandarin, ginger, and cardamom. It has a sort of woodsy smell to it that I really like. And I also got Ocean Odyssey, which has a very light scent to it. It has salt, a hint of citrus, and the feel of freshly laundered bed sheets. It's a very light scent. You can use the link in my description, or you can use the QR code on the screen and use my code, Murphy, to get 55% off of your first month at Scentbird. That's about $8 for your first month. Thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring this video. Bad takes. Let's go. The reason so many fantasy books emulate what J.R.R. Tolkien did with his world building is because Tolkien was the only fantasy author who ever go outside and take inspiration from there. What's funny about this is that it rings so true from how I hear authors talk, where they're like, yeah, we have to do promotional stuff, yeah, we have to do life stuff, but really we just want to write. That's like our main goal in life, is just to be able to have more writing time. Authors, sound off in the comments. Does that sound true to you? Because I'm not a writer, but that sounds true to me. My stack of unread books is not a deterrent to buying more. It's actually a work of art, and I need to constantly add to it so it doesn't ruin my artistic expression. I love the snobby tone of this too. Like if somebody's like, that TBR stack, it's like as tall as you are, maybe you should read something, and just being like, don't stifle my artistic expression. This is art. I love that. That's really beautiful. There should be an option to break into the publishing world via gladiatorial combat. Who gets the last spot in Penguin Random House's spring lineup? Settle it in the circle. I think I could take half the fantasy writers out there, Rothfuss and Stephen King for sure. Abercrombie looks like he works out though. Okay, now hang on though. Have you seen Powerlifter Rothfuss? Hang on.
Hello.
Hey, what's Powerlifter Rothfuss's name?
What?
The world's strongest man, Rothfuss?
Robert Oberst. No, wait. Yes, Robert Oberst.
Step into the circle with Robert Oberst.
Huh?
I feel like you could definitely take George R.R. Martin, though. Although, he would probably cheat. I feel like he would cheat. Who would not cheat that you could probably take? I'm missing a book there. Why didn't no one tell me that? Also, I think pretty much every fantasy author would cheat. I just don't believe it. Brandon Sanderson. You could take Brandon, and he wouldn't cheat. Most fantasy authors, I think, would cheat. I'm gonna go grab those books. If you hate a book, don't use it for reading. Use it for something like a mouse pad. I do that, actually. I do have a stack of books that I didn't finish that serve as a platform for my laptop. I won't show you which ones, though. Authors should do crossovers, but instead of pure fan service adventures, should let characters recap their stories to each other. What? So you're saying that George R.R. Martin's characters should just pop over into the Gentleman Bastard series and be like, man, you'll never guess what I just witnessed. Oh, Malazan characters should just pop over into the Gentleman Bastards and be like, you'll never guess what I just witnessed. And then they tell like the most out of context nonsense. Like they'll say something that to someone who's read the first book, that's read the crossover book, it'll make sense, but it's abstract enough and out of context enough that people who don't know it will say,
If surely that didn't actually happen. I like that idea way more than I should. Like imagine if Marvin from Hitchhikers just randomly showed up in a super serious book and just started depressing people. Oh no, I want to come up with more. What if Gimli just showed up in a Discworld book and was like, this is not the way dwarfs are supposed to act. This isn't the way anyone is supposed to act. It's so stupid. I love it too much. Oh no, we just started the video and I think I found my favorite comment of the video. I want to write fan fictions of this now. I just want to come up with the most obscene crossovers where a character just pops in and either gives the worst out of context summary for something that they just experienced, or somebody just pops into a world where it's like, where it's their fantastical race, but in a different writer's hands, and they're like, no, don't do that. That's so stupid. I think every writer should have someone like your one mod whose sole job is to keep a running spreadsheet. Lynn! Sorry. my spreadsheet mod's name is Lynn. I think every writer should have someone like your one mod whose sole job is keep a running spreadsheet of every single reference to a character age, birth date, age difference from another character, and any other data from which these things can be interpreted. And then hold the writer accountable! Blame the math major on me, but inconsistencies, or at least implausibilities in those things, drive me crazy. So you're saying that a writer should have a Lynn, should have that one mod that's like, you forgot something. I know Sanderson has that. He has beta readers that their specific job is continuity and consistency to help him keep track of things because he writes so many things at once, and especially with the Skyward books, he had another author step in and help out with some novellas that he didn't even write, but are canon to the series. And so I know that he leaned on some of his beta readers for consistency, for continuity issues that might come up because of that unique writing situation. I can't imagine that smaller scale authors could afford to have a team behind them doing stuff like that. But I do like the idea of having just dedicated fans that keep track of that kind of stuff just to assist the author as a labor of love. That does actually sound like something that a lot of authors would appreciate. Buying new books for the TBR pile is more fun / rewarding than reading them. Oh no. I guess it depends on the book. I think that there are some books that nothing could beat the experience, hardly anything could beat the experience of reading it, but it is a different kind of fun to go out and to get new books or to get new books in the mail and be like, aha, this book, I'm so excited, I got it! And then putting it in the pile and then going back to the book that you're currently reading, and then who knows when you'll get to that one. It's half exciting and half anxiety inducing because too many books I'm excited about, not enough time to read them all. Murphy should be given the power to flick authors in the ear once for every time they use the word undulating in their books. You know what? I agree with that. Can somebody make this happen? Even just like a virtual flick. Even if just like virtually I could just tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, stop it. It may give me a little bit of satisfaction, but it also may give them too much satisfaction and make this epidemic even worse. Ebooks could have way more interesting formats. Audiobooks too. Their full potential isn't being used. It's so easy to insert links, images, audio, skip to other pages, etc. into ebooks. Also, books don't have to have the structure of a line anymore. Imagine a book that you can start at any point and stop or keep rereading when you reach that point again. A plot can be any shape it wants to be and could be personalized for every reader individually. That is very overwhelming. No. Don't do that to me. Ebooks having more interesting formatting, yeah, that sounds fun. Including more artwork into books to make them more visually exciting, that too sounds fun. However, whatever you just described in physical books is horrifying to me. Probably just because I don't understand it and it seems overwhelming. The only thing I can think of
that sounds applicable and actually usable is those choose your own adventure books that I used to read when I was in middle school, where you start at the beginning and then you choose what path you want to take, and it tells you if you choose this, if you do this thing, flip to page 57, if you do this thing, flip to page 28, and then you choose your path and then continue to do that until you either die or you finish the adventure. So that I've seen utilized, but whatever you just described sounds overwhelming and scary. So, no. Books and movies are too long these days. If you can fill up 500 pages with good material, then that's great. But the practice of removing and pruning lackluster arcs and subplots really needs to make a comeback. Eventually, there's also just so much of this one book that I can take before I want it to be over and done with. No matter how much I love it, sometimes too much is too much. I don't know. What do you mean? The practice of removing and pruning lackluster arcs and subplots really needs to make a comeback? When was that in style? Like, look at classics. Classics are daggum long and side tangenty. And I don't feel like there was a period of time where really, really concise books was the way. And if you have a really long, drawn-out book, then you're an outlier. I don't think that was ever actually a thing. Now, don't get me wrong. Tight, concise, well-paced books exist, and I love them, but I don't know that that's ever been what's in style. Personally, I do kind of agree with this sometimes. There are a lot of really long books that I come away from saying, it was great, it could have been trimmed down, but it was great. But also when I read a short book that I really like, I usually say, I wish there was more. So I'm probably the wrong person to comment on this because I'm very inconsistent. If I love the book, then I love a lot of pages of it. If I don't love the book, then it could have been trimmed down. It's really just depending on how interested I am in how many pages I want to read. I've heard quite a few people say that they refuse to start Gentlemen Bastards because it's unfinished. Maybe I'll be waiting my entire lifetime for the next book. Still, I think enduring the wait is better than willingly depriving yourself of Locke and Jean's glorious shenanigans and tomfoolery. Well, I do agree. I would not be surprised if this series never gets finished, and I do understand not wanting that for yourself, especially with certain series that also will likely never be finished that people have waited too long for. For me, there's so many books that I'm excited to read that I don't really care that much. Obviously, I want one of my all-time favorite series, one of my top 2 favorite series of all time. I want to see it come to an end. I want to see how it concludes. But also, there's a lot of series that I've really, really loved, and then I get to the final book and I say, okay, serviceable ending, but it goes down a little bit in my ranking now that I've finished it because I don't know, it seems like it's really hard to end a series, a large scope series, really, really satisfyingly. So I'm actually kind of okay with series not being finished because then I can continue saying, what an amazing series, without having to step back at the end and check to see if it's satisfying in every way, in every direction. Maybe that's my bad take of the video. I kind of like unfinished series because then the hope and expectation of what it could be in the end remains with me rather than getting an ending and then having to decide if it's good enough or not. I think that's gonna be my bad take of the video. I'll continue reading yours, but I think that'll be mine because I don't think anybody will agree with that. Everyone should read a couple books every year that they choose blindly from the library or store shelf with no foreknowledge of the book's length, genre, cover, plot, ratings, etc. I do this. I used to do it a lot more, but now that I don't have book recommendations coming at me, I do it a little bit less, but I still do it. Usually it's a cover by, usually it's an aquatic cover by. If a book has an oceanic scene in the front, I'm probably gonna pick it up and at least read the back description. But I have more than once just picked it up, read the blurb, and then gone to checkout or gone to the library checkout. And I've actually found some favorites that way. Some of the best books that I've ever read, some of the biggest hidden gems that I've ever read have been books exactly like that. Or one time there was somebody, oh my goodness, one time, this isn't a cover by, but one time someone DM'd me and said, I just finished a book, it made me cry so much, it took me an hour to read, and no one I know has read it. I really want someone else to read it, can you try? And I thought, an hour to read? Sure, why not? I had never heard of the book before. I had never heard of the author before. And that was my introduction to Frederick Bachman, my all-time favorite author. I didn't even know what the book was about. This person didn't even pitch the storyline to me. They just said, I need to talk to someone about this. And that introduced me to a whole new world that's been amazing for me. This is still my favorite Bachman book. So yes, agreed. Everyone should do this. It's okay to read books in intervals while reading other books in those intervals. I mean, how could you read an entire Stormlight book without devouring a few Discworlds in between? I love that example that you gave. Agreed. Personally, when I read a really, really thick book, I always have intervals. I always have interludes, intercessions. I always have intercessions. Like, for instance, I'm currently reading The Bone Hunters, which is the 6th Malazan book, and what I do is I read a part. So each of these books are broken into 4 parts, and so I'll finish part 1, and then I'll take a break and read something else. Part 2, take a break, read something else. For me, this is the perfect formula for reading really thick, really dense, really books that are very expansive, because it gives me a second to take a breath, to digest what's going on, to read something else, and then get excited to get back to that. So I'm with you. I'm with you with this 100%. It's okay to hate read a book and then also keep it on your shelf just so you can look at it and get pissed off about how much you hate it. I do this. I actually do this. I have a habit of skipping to the end of a chapter or a book to see how it ends. Not sure why I'm actively ruining the reading experience for myself, but I don't think I'll be stopping anytime soon either. I love that self-awareness. I actually did this as a kid too. It was like a rule. It was a self-imposed rule for myself. Before I started the book, I'd go to the end and read the last sentence usually, but sometimes if that sentence didn't give me anything, then I would read the last paragraph or even the last page. And I really liked that because growing up, I read a lot of like thrillers or things that had kind of a really dynamic final line or final scene. And I don't know, there was something really, I remember one in particular, the final line was, "Hello, police, I'd like to report a murder." And that has stuck with me since I was like 10 years old when I read that final sentence in the book, because I remember reading that and then going back to the beginning and knowing there's no way I can put this book down. I have to know how we get there. And very rarely does the last line actually spoil that much. I don't do it anymore, except for sometimes, every now and then, but usually never anymore. Roughed up books look cool, especially nonfiction ones with tons of writing in them. Thank you! Agreed! You have no idea how many comments I get from people telling me, stop writing in your books. No, they're mine. I own them, not you. I love putting a piece of myself into my books, especially my favorite books. If it's not an author that I already know and trust, if it's not already a series that I'm invested in, if it's something that I do not have confidence that I'm gonna love, I don't mark it up and I take care of it. That way, if I don't like it, I can donate it to the library. But if it's something that I know I'm going to love, or something that I have confidence that that I could potentially hate, then I will intentionally mark it up. I'll put my notes all over it, because then I'm actively reading with the story. I'm putting myself into the story. I'm writing my theories into the margins. I'm reacting on page to something that's happened, and that gets me way more engaged in the story. It gets me way more invested in what's going on. And if it becomes a new favorite, I did this with Peter Pan the first time I read it. If it becomes a new favorite, then I can forever go back to that first time I read the story and relive those first emotions. That's cool. Also, my kids will be able to go back and see my notes for my favorite stories. And I love the look of a beaten up book too. I think a book that looks well read, that you can tell it's been a part of somebody's life, I think that's awesome. Broken spines, they're cool. 97% of books with dust jackets look way better without them, and the dust jackets should just be thrown away. That's so hard for me because I agree, a lot of books look amazing without dust jackets. The Last Quintista, this is a beautiful cover. I love this cover. But when you take the cover off, look at that. Look at that book. That's amazing. Why aren't more hardcovers like this? Gorgeous cover, gorgeous underbelly. My problem is I would almost prefer for authors and publishers not to do this, because then I'm so conflicted. I want to display it both ways because they're both great. And then I get overwhelmed because I don't know which one I like best and what to do. So actually, opposite. I want publishers to stop trying. I tend to skip most everything main characters are not involved in. Knowing important world-shattering information our main character is not aware of that would completely change their actions or decisions is almost always frustrating. Let me see the world through their eyes. Thank you. Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around how you could even do this. How do you even, So when the book changes perspectives, you just skip it? I can understand how this would work in series like Aragon, where you only read Aragon's POV chapters and you just skip his cousin's POV chapters. But how do you read Malazan? How do you read the Dandelion Dynasty? How do you read series where you're constantly hopping from one person's perspective to another? How do you read a series where the main character is no main character? Everybody's a main character. Loads of main characters. What do you do when you have a book that has two main characters? What do you do? What do you mean? What happened? How do you? So when a character goes off, when Gandalf goes off and does something, and you just skip that, you're just like, Frodo doesn't know, I don't know, I'm just gonna skip this scene. And then, whenever Gandalf returns and he just quick summarizes, he's just like, oh yeah, I engaged in that battle over there. Or I recovered from, I'm keeping it spoiler free, even though it's the Lord of the Rings. I recovered, I saved myself from this event. And he just like real quick says what happened without a lot of context because the author assumes that you already have said context. Then you, the reader, are just like, oh, okay, that happened. I don't need to know anything more about it, and I don't need to witness it. I don't need to see the battle. Doesn't matter. I am confused. Every fantasy book should have magic glitter pens included, free of cost. Also, a blank page before the end of the book to draw. To draw in would be nice. What? What do you even mean? Why? I mean, don't get me wrong, as someone who loves annotating, I would love a free pen with every book, although I would probably get overwhelmed because I buy a lot of books. And having a blank page at the end is awesome. I love taking notes. I oftentimes, when books do have blank pages at the end, I oftentimes will utilize that blank page to jot down bullet point plot points or character beats or just like pros and cons that I'm thinking about, but that's because I make videos on books. I wouldn't do that if I was just reading and then discussing it with no one. But don't get me wrong, I love this idea and I think we should absolutely do it. Books aren't edible enough. I'm gonna need you to unpack that one. I'm gonna need you to explain that a lot more than what you've done here today. What do you mean? What could you possibly want with this? Okay, I think I'll end the video on this one. Pictures aren't actually worth 1,000 words. They're worth like 250 at best. I don't know why that got me so much, but it's just so stupid. It's such a stupid nitpick and thing to argue. So naturally, I will join you in this fight and I will die on this hill with you. Okay, I'm gonna stop. But thank you. This was beautiful. I enjoyed this video. I enjoyed getting to laugh at your bad takes. It was awesome. I hope you enjoyed it too. Next week we're doing a reading vlog. I'm reading several new releases. Well, I have been reading several new releases. We're gonna hang out, talk about them. Please feel free to leave more bad takes in the comments if you like. They're super fun to read through. I post videos every Monday and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on my review channel, where I do weekly reading vlogs. I do dedicated reviews for my favorite books that I read. I'll see you again soon. Bye.